Our first guest, our actual scheduled first guest, is here and has been here for the last few minutes, hanging out and hopefully laughing. I hope he was he? I don't know if he was laughing. We're not that funny. No, we're not. He's shaking his head. No, I get it. Anyway, we've got executive producer for IWS, wonderful wrestler, head of Casanova Productions, head trainer for the IWS Dojo, and soon you can catch him and IWS on Fight Plus. Superstar Shayne Hawke joins us now, also known as Andrew.
Andrew. There's a lot of W's involved in Andrew.
What do the W's stand for other than wrestling?
Wacky, wonderful, wrestling.
I love that you were immediately available to tell us what those were.
I'm a writer by trade, so I know all sorts of W words.
Oh, that's a good point. How you doing, buddy?
It's Monday morning. Usually it's a travel day for me, but I wrestled in my hometown, my home province, the last 3 days. So I'm at home. I'm going to do this right here. Very fun. And then do some boxes because I'm moving on the 1st. And then back to work, baby.
Looking forward to that, I'm sure. I mean, it's work. Work is work. Wrestling is wrestling.
It's always work, but it's better to have too much work than not enough work, right?
That's right. So let's get the plug right out of the way. Saturday, July 15th, IWS Scarred for Life at l'Olympia in Montreal.
Yeah.
It's now Dark Sheik versus Benjamin Tull for the IWS World Title. What will you be doing at the show? I know they haven't announced it yet, but come on. What are you going to do?
I'll give you a scoop just because Andrew Zarin clearly didn't give you any scoops of value. Somebody needs to get the dirt going for this, right? Well, we lost our tag team titles last month against Amazingly Sweet, which is Chris Darrell, Sweetest P, and the festive firework, Alex Mays. Then afterwards, we put a little bit of a beat down on the hardcore hero, the Green Phantom, Matt Viviani making his return, symbolically ripping off his knee brace that kept him out of action and raising the IWS Canadian Championship into the air. Casanova Productions clearly has a lot of unfinished business with both Amazingly Sweet and the Green Phantom. So can you guess what kind of match we're going to have?
Is it a dog collar match?
It's a lethal lottery match. No, we're little callback. I was listening. See, we're going to probably do a trios, 3-on-3. We're going to do all 3 of the boys. The boys band is back together, Casprod, against the tag team champions and the Canadian champion.
Oh, wonderful.
Because that's what you're supposed to say when you are challenging people to a fight. We're going to do something about respect also. You will respect me at the end of the night. Yes, that's correct.
So Matt Viviani's back, and that's good to see. I'm glad to see him. He whooped my ass at Mario Kart once upon a time on a Love Wrestling stream.
Is a video game wizard, savant, whatever word you want to use for prodigy or just talented guy. And I keep bothering him to start a Twitch channel. And I'm going to use this opportunity and this platform to call him out for being a coward one more time, because he's always like, oh, I'll get around to it. Oh, I have to get a gaming PC. Your excuses are your own, my friend. Listen, the way that this guy plays video games, there's no reason he should be making money off of it, especially in this economy where we turn all of our passions into money because that's what we have to do to survive. He should be doing it, but he doesn't. What a coward. What a wuss. We hate him, but we love him also. We do love him. And he's going to help me move with his pickup truck. So actually, we love Matt Viviani quite a bit.
So
I thought you were going to say that Matt Viviani just whooped your ass, Joel Pearl, which would be fantastic. Shane, can you beat up Joel Pearl? Like, Absolutely. Will you fight him, please?
Honestly, I'm fairly certain there are not too many pro wrestlers that I would be worried about fighting in the ring these days. One, because of politics, because you want to be on my good side. And 2, I mean, bro, I have 2 black belts. Who's going to mess with me?
Oh, shit.
I'm a big goofy nerd, but like I know how to fight. I can scrap. I put up a tweet the other day that was out of like just didn't get over, but I was like, I want to be the sweetest man you've ever met who can physically kill you with his bare hands. And I think I've done a good job of purveying and achieving that goal where I'm just very nice to everybody because I like when people are nice to me back. So it's very selfish in a way. I think if I'm nice to people, they will be kind to me in return. And also I can beat you up. So not too worried about it. Although I don't know if I would. Joel and I would not fight, though. We're both 2 nice, good Jewish boys. You'd probably just go out.
Joel is the worst. Joel's the worst.
I disagree.
He'll talk so much trash off air and everything. The moment you leave this stream, he's gonna bury you.
He's probably right. To bury me, that's okay.
No, of all the people I would bury, this is not one of them.
You can bear it. Go ahead. What are you going to say? Huh? That I worked too hard? That I gave too much to the business over 20 years? Guys, yesterday I wrestled a match against a guy named Fred Lambert. He's a Quebec wrestling legend. Back in the old days of the IWS, he was up there with Kevin Steen and with El Generico. Even before El Generico became El Generico, he was Stevie McFly, and he feuded with Fred Lambert. I first wrestled this guy in 2003, and I wrestled him again last night here in Montreal. That's a 20-year gap, which is wild. That blows my mind. We had a really fun match too. Like we can still go. But we've had matches in 2 different decades. It's been 20 years. And that's mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. But back to the Scarred for Life. Let me get the plugs back in here because that's the important part. We're going to be on Fight Plus now. We got a pay-per-view deal going on. And you can subscribe to their streaming service for, I believe, $7.99 a month. I haven't perfected my plugs yet, but it will be our first event available on pay-per-view, which is very, very cool. We have Bussy coming in as well. Effie and Allie Catch. Jordan Oliver will be on the card. Maki Ito will be in the house.
Nice.
Wrestling someone who we will announce later. But if you know the IWS, you can kind of guess. But it is another international female name, which is very, very cool. These Olympia shows, they're kick ass, man. I don't know, Joel, if you saw IWS versus GCW, Worst Behavior, but we really go out of our way with the production value and everything at IWS in general. And we go extra hard on these Olympia shows. And we usually do about 1,000, 2,000 people in there. So it's an old school theater. It's really nice. The ambience is cool. And then you add like violent death matches into that. And it makes a nice little pastiche of genres, so to speak.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were introduced to IWS from across the border by watching that GCW versus IWS show. And that was, for a lot of people, it opened their eyes. There is a lot of different wrestling that goes on in IWS. Talk to me about the Fight Plus deal. How did that come together? When did you guys decide that was the right time to pick up that deal?
We decided it was the right time to pick up that deal because they wanted to pick up deal. I was like, yeah, let's do that for sure. Because we're already on TV. We're on syndicated TV on the FITE network, which is FIGHT, which is available in Canada, the United States, and Europe. So we're in 22 countries on our weekly TV program. It airs at 8 p.m. on Fridays on the FITE network and then has repeats, I believe, on Tuesday and Thursday, but please don't quote me on that. I might be mistaken. Regardless, we did that show with GCW. That came together. We did those two events. Brett was a ref in IWS back in the day. Brett Lauderdale from GCW. We've known each other, us and Manny and all them. We all go back a good 20 years, like a good long time. And for a while, we've been talking about it. Logistically, we were finally be able to make it work. It worked out super well. We had 2 really fun shows in Montreal and Toronto. That Fight Plus stream did really, really well for everybody of that event. Like you said, it kind of reintroduced people to IWS. Manny got his ear cut off one of the shows, and then Sexy Eddie did the naked moonsault on Matt Cardona, and Jim Cornette had an aneurysm on the second one, which was super fun. I think it did kind of open people's eyes up. And honestly, like the Canadian scene right now is firing on all cylinders. And there's a lot of people who just don't realize that south of the border, which is, kind of just par for the course when it comes to professional wrestling. Ever since I've been around, people don't really know about Canada. There's this big landmass. I was working Philly one time and I was getting gas, and the gas operator, he asked me, hey, where are you from, man? And I said, up north. And he said, oh yeah, like New York. And I said, higher up. Said, oh yeah, like Alaska. But, brother, there's this big landmass right in between there. All right, it's much bigger than your country. I got news for you. It's this big landmass called Canada. But like all sorts of places in Canada are firing on all cylinders. Like I said, like IWS, I honestly feel like we have the strongest product that we've ever had in the 25-year history of the company. There's some really good talented people who are really hungry. Who a lot of them have been trained by myself and Speedball Bailey to an extent as well. But then like you get the C4s in there, and then you get like the NEW in Vancouver, and you get NSPW in Quebec City. And there's a lot of really talented professional wrestlers coming out of Canada that if the border wasn't an issue and maybe Twitter was a little bit bigger here, we might have a little bit more attention on us. So the whole point of this Fight Plus deal is one, to elevate and to increase our own value as a brand, but 2, to get some eyes on some people up here who people down there might not be aware of even existing. And I can tell you for a fact, like I genuinely feel this. This is a shoot. I'm shooting here, guys. All right, ready? I think that if you put our roster against any American roster at all, we smoke them. You put the Canadian talent, like the top Canadian guys, against the top American guys any day of the week. We're gonna expose them. We're gonna make them look like goofs, because American Indies right now are the Indies on easy mode. Very easy to get attention in the American Indies. And hey, it's a boom period in wrestling. Very awesome. Fantastic. Great for everybody. But you know what? When you're Canadian, if people in the States know you and you're Canadian, you've worked extra hard for that. And it's almost like a badge of honor, so to speak, because you're undeniable in that case, which is one thing that I'm very proud of with Casanova Productions, being able to wrestle, in the United States and in Europe and stuff like that. It's very hard to break out as a Canadian athlete. Very, very difficult, but it can be done. But I mean, if you look at the people in like the big leagues who are in WWE and AEW who are Canadian, a good chunk of them came from Montreal. Montreal's a hotbed of wrestling. It always has been. It's been a wrestling city, right? And I genuinely believe you put us up against any Americans and we will put you down. We'll smoke you. Shoot.
I'm going to tell everyone a secret right now. And that's not the first time I've heard you say that.
Yeah. So first of all, I have that in the chamber already for podcast. That's for sure. All right. So that's
that's an easy headline. I appreciate that. I always appreciate the easy headlines.
Absolutely. But like you could say, like Shayne Hawke says,
yeah,
any Canadian talent, well, not any Canadian talent. Let's understand here. Like I'm very subjective, right? But I do think that I hate to say that we're underappreciated and underrated. I really hate those words. I don't, well, hate's a strong word also, but I really don't like the idea that like there's because wrestling is subjective and there's different audiences for all sorts of different things, right? So I don't like the underrated word. I feel like that's a bit of a cop out. But I do think that there is a lot of design space for Canadian wrestling that has not been explored yet. And I think that we have some stuff going on here. There's a reason that so many Americans want to come up to Canada and wrestle. Right. We've got some guys and some girls out here and some days out here. We got some wrestlers, some athletes out here that need to break out. Pay attention, Americans. If you take one thing away from this, me rambling at 10:30 in the morning where I've only had half a cup of coffee, it's that you're missing out on some really, really good wrestling. And sure, there are only so many hours in the day and you can only consume so much content. And there's so much of it out there, but hey, try something new once in a while. You might just like it.
Who are some of the wrestlers on the Canadian independent scene that deserve more of a spotlight and like, hey, pay attention to these guys?
There's an obvious tag team here that needs to break out worldwide, and that's Tabarnak Team. Tabarnak Team, arguably one of the best teams in the world. Like you can put them in that conversation. I've seen them take the Bucks to the limit. I've seen them take Mustache Mountain to the limit. I've seen them. Their wars with Dark Order are legendary. Tabarnak Team, they're two French Canadian lumberjacks who are just throwbacks to brawling, but they're so talented and so smart. Their psychology is on point. They wrestled in Ontario at Fighting Back. They wrestled Cody Rhodes and MJF back in the AEW starting days. And like people were clamoring for them to get signed. And I think they started doing more with Limitless Wrestling. And Tabarnak Team are just two athletes who, if you like the Mike Baileys and you like the Stu Graysons, you're doing yourself a disservice by not going out of your way to watch TDT. Some other people who I think are really starting to get very good. The Green Phantom is very, very good these days. People kind of just saw him as just a deathmatch wrestler. He's really got his working boots on, really good. I'm going to put myself in there, honestly. I've been doing this for 20 years. I feel like I'm having the best matches of my life. I'm in the best shape of my life. I think all of Casanova Productions is an international level act. I mean, we've shown that by working all over the States and working all over Europe. Ben Tull, the IWS world champion, very, very talented individual. When we bring in Americans, we'll usually put them against Ben Tull. It's kind of a gatekeeper right now. He had some wild matches with Tony Depp and Joey Janela, all sorts of like big names too. We got him against Dark Sheik, as we mentioned before. Let's see, who else do I got on my docket here? Matt Falco, 6'7", this giant who can do flips. Like, and then to that extent, there's Locked and Loaded, Mark Wheeler and Jesse V out in Ontario. Jesse V is a monster of like 6'7", 6'8" of like just pure muscle. And dude can do tope con hilo over the corner, like that crazy Ricochet Stu Grayson flip. This dude does it like it's nothing. And expects us little guys to catch him. Like, like really, there's just our female Christera, who recently beat me for the IWS tag titles, is really starting to come into her own. Some people in America might be familiar with Vanessa Craven, and maybe a little bit less so with her tag team partner James Stone. Two extremely talented. There's just so much in Quebec City. We've got Matt Angel, who, if you've seen his stuff from C4, is just fantastic. Man, I could go on and on. I really could. There's such an untapped market here. That's really what it is. There's so much potential for growth. That we were talking, like you guys were talking about, like putting your marketing cap on and doing like world titles. Like, you want to see good wrestling. There's a reason C4 is known as the PWG of Canada. You want to see really entertaining, high production values. I'm not sure there's an independent fed right now that has a higher production value than IWS. If there is, you're going to have to show me, because I don't see anybody else with a tech team of 15 people and revolving screens with ads and Globo lights and full shows and video packages and TV programs. Like, if it's in pro wrestling right now, we've got it. It's there. We're selling out 2,000 person stadiums, right? Like, these are big shows. These are not just 100 people, 150 people, which is not to put down the smaller companies, because I work them all the time. It's just a matter of saying, like, for the amount of talent and the amount of for lack of a better word, the amount of hot stuff going on, people just don't notice it, which is, I'm not blaming the audience on that too, because like that's silly, right? When you like put something on stage, and then you're like, oh, the audience. No, you gotta work for your audience. I think one of the things that does hold us back in Quebec, though, is that a lot of people are French, and there's a language barrier there, right? So also our audience is French live, but then our audience on broadcast is English. So that we have to kind of do things in two languages. I know that's why a lot of the bigger companies don't like coming to Montreal as much, because then you have to do everything twice, right? All of your copy has to be written twice. All your marketing materials have to be done twice. The images have to be done twice, because you need them in English and in French. By law, you need them in French. But wrestling does transcend language. Wrestling itself is a language. And I think we're speaking that language better than we ever have.
So you're talking about selling at 2,000 seat venues.
Yeah.
You also made reference to 150 seat venues. So let's go. I want to go back to 2004. There was a very popular video that made its way around Twitter. And that was the IWS 5th anniversary show featuring one Sid Vicious.
Yeah.
You had a couple of stories to tell about that experience. Can you talk to us about Sid at the 5th anniversary show for IWS?
So this was Sid's first match back since breaking his leg in WCW. And he was a surprise. We did not announce him beforehand. PCO, Pierre Carl Roulette, was with us there at the time and wanted to bring him in. And they were forming this tag team called The New Shit. And their music was The New Shit by Marilyn Manson, of course. And they wore tight jean jorts, tight though, with like fishnets on the side, but not fishnets, like the crisscross cords. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They had those on, and they had leather vests. And there was a tag team battle royal, and they famously destroyed Big Larry, who goes on to be El Generico and Sami Zayn. Actually, Fred, the guy who I was wrestling yesterday, told me a story about that, because he was in that match, but he was not supposed to be there by the time Sid came out. But nobody eliminated him, so he was still in the ring, and Sid was coming out, and he did not want to wrestle Sid. So he eliminated himself. He threw himself over the top. And Sid pointed at him and followed him the entire way till he got backstage. Sid arrived, and he decided he wanted a faction. Okay, great. What's your faction? Well, he brought a little person with an oversized hourglass. The hourglass was taller than the little person. There was a woman by the name of Divine, who was a former dancer, who had a double-sided sign saying "The end is nigh." And there was another guy in there. I completely forget who that was. I, like, watching the video back, I realized that was another guy, and I've like erased him from my memory somehow. But that's probably the CTE. And then Sid also asked for goons. He wanted like, you know, henchmen. So myself and the man who would become Giant Tiger were asked to wear all black and to put pantyhose on our head. And masked assassins, Pipe and Wrench, and Pipe held a wrench and Wrench held a pipe. You get it? The masked assassins gimmick was a rib on this other company at the time, CWA, who had gone to like war with IWS and there was talent exchange, and it was on a very micro level. It was like WWF, WCW, but when I say micro level, I mean like quantum realm micro. But regardless, the promoter there was kind of a goofball, and he had made a false claim that people had jumped him in the parking lot after a show, wearing all black and pantyhose on their head, and said, "Your company dies with you, remember that." And so that clearly never happened, but we decided to rib it a little bit. I mean, I'm 16, though. I think I was 15 at the time, right? So, like, I'm just going along with it. I'm happy to be in the ring with Sid. Sid cuts a 17-minute, 45-second unscripted promo at the end of his match. First of all, Sid is the sweatiest person I've ever been in the ring with. All right. It felt like I was taking a shower when I was in the ring there. In this promo, Sid asks if the crowd is down with the old shit or the new shit. And if you're down with the new shit, you must remove your shirt. So a couple of guys take their shirts off, but largely this fails. Myself and Giant Tiger, the masked assassin, take our shirts off. Well, Giant Tiger takes his off, no problem. But when I do it, it gets caught in my pantyhose mask. And I don't want to break kayfabe, because at the time that was important, and I didn't want people to know it was me, even though they could clearly see it was me. So I didn't want to take the shirt all the way off, because I didn't want to remove the mask and expose that I was Shayne Hawke. Oh my God, giant shocker there, right? So I kind of left it shittily on one shoulder. And Sid gave me this look like I am just the biggest loser he's ever seen in his life. He's just looking at me like, you nerd. Then there's two backstage stories that these are scoops for you. This is pretty funny. The first one is a story that was told to me, and I wasn't there for it, but I was around and I believe it. Sid asked one of the room boys for 2 chairs. He's like, can I get 2 stools rather? Said, can I get 2 stools? And the guy said, 2 stools? Yeah, sure. Why? And he said, I'm not going to repeat it word for word, because one of the words he says is offensive about little people. But what he says is, the first one's for my knee pads. And the second one is, so if the wants to suck my dick, he doesn't need to jump. We're 15. He's saying this to us. We're 15-year-old boys.
Yeah, but it's Montreal, so it's fine.
I don't think he knew that we were 15. I don't think he was aware of who we are. Later on in the night, PCO at the time was doing this gimmick where, like, he had amnesia and still thought he was in the WWE. So he would still, like, he would address people like they were WWE guys, like in promos. And he was doing this promo where he was like calling guys WWE guys. Sid walks by this guy named Viking. Viking later on goes on to become IWS Tag Team Champion, World Champion, worked in GCW a bunch, becomes a deathmatch guy. Viking is pretty heavy at the time. He was a bigger boy until he broke his jaw and lost a bunch of weight. He's still pretty big at the time. Sid walks by and says, "How much you weigh?" And Viking, who in his broken English, because he's French, doesn't speak English, says, 205 pounds. And Sid goes, 205 pounds of shit. And walks off. Doesn't come back. That's it. He just walks off. So that was an occasion. And Sid never came back. Strangely enough, I thought that he would have really liked his experience with but to this day, of course, I am a faction member with Sid Vicious. And hey, it's a story, right? But man, what a time. 15 years old in a bar, underage in a bar. If it wants to suck my dick, he doesn't need to jump. And the little person was there and looked at him like, "Are you serious, bro? Like, what? What is this?"
Oh, I'm glad that Ito sold it. He sold it differently, at least.
He didn't sell it at all. He was just, that's just Sid, whatever. It was like, silly old Sid. What are we going to
I like he's just like 205 pounds of shit, and he's never seen again. That's it.
He walks out. That's it. That's how he rides in 205 shit.
Popping at his own joke is the best, the absolute best. He's just gone.
Hilarious. You know, it's a poop joke. That's funny. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh my gosh, that rules.
As we start to wind down,
Yeah.
I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about training, and you and I once upon a time had a conversation about mental health in and out of wrestling. Let's start with the training. Let's hear a little bit. I know you've told me before about some of the stuff that you do at IWS Dojo and the ways that in which you train some of the wrestlers there. So talk to us about the training experience under.
So the IWS Dojo, I'm super proud of it right now. It's a 23,000 square foot facility. We've got a wrestling ring, a boxing ring, jiu-jitsu mats, a full gym, including Westside barbell equipment. And I'm a certified personal trainer as well. So like I'm able to give my students programs and stuff. If you took the amount of weight lost in my dojo, you could build an entire roster at this point. People are doing really well. They work really hard. My training focus is focused around not getting hurt. I've been hurt quite a bit. I've been injured quite a bit. We do a lot in terms of match structure and psychology that other people might not do. I give seminars quite often about how to influence the brain chemistry of the audience when we're performers and how to work with things like dopamine and serotonin and how to trigger them through nonverbal communication. So I try to provide an environment for my kids that I didn't have when I was coming up in the business. You know, like 20 years ago, you were bumping on concrete. There was initiation. You would just get your ass kicked. And, you know, it was like 500,000 squats at once and very old school kind of mentality. I tend to maintain that old school kind of respect and honor for the industry and for the business. But at the same time, some of the old methods are not really as conducive anymore. And there's a reason so many of those guys got hurt and died young. I think that I have this nice little bridging of the gap since I have 20 years experience, but I'm turning 35 in September. I have this way to be in between the former generation and the next generation. And I'm able to translate that, which is nice. We have 5 classes a week. And one thing that I do that other places don't do is that on Sundays I have match class and you're pretty much having matches right away. I do think that the best way to learn professional wrestling is to actually do it. So Monday and Tuesday, well, Monday is for beginners, and that's, you know, like bumping and rope running and stuff like that. Basics and making sure that you're able to move around the ring. Tuesday is for everybody. That's run by Alex Mays, the student run class at this point. And that's, again, more basic stuff, a little bit more advanced. Thursday's advanced class with me. We'll dive into more advanced techniques on that one. And then Sunday, we have 2 match classes, a beginner match class and an advanced match class. I'll generally pair a rookie with somebody who's been wrestling for a while to have those matches, lead them through it. But in my career, I've been able to have matches with musicians and comedians and people who are not trained whatsoever. And I think that's a very important skill to learn. A lot of what I do on Thursday as well is improvisation. So I'll throw them in the ring and I'll say, start working, boys. Because a lot of the times, a lot of the people are not trained in improvisation anymore. It's kind of a dying art at this point, listening to the audience. And I do try to impact on them that one of the reasons that wrestling is special is that pro wrestling is special, is that we're able to communicate with the audience. The audience has a influence on the art that's happening in the ring. So, you know, if you yell at Captain America in the movie theaters, he's not going to change what he does. But if you yell at a wrestler, you can impact and sometimes even change the story. So we need to embrace that medium in pro wrestling. And I try to impact that on my students as well, or impart that rather on my students as well. Nonetheless, we still train hard. We work hard. Former coaches at the IWS Dojo include Speedball Mike Bailey, Daddy Magic, and Angela Parker, as well as myself. I'm still around because I'm the one who didn't get signed. Overall, I'm real proud of it. We've had quite a bit of really talented people come through the dojo. A good section of the upper class of Montreal wrestling right now are people who have come through my wrestling school. I just really like teaching. I am well versed in many styles. I can do technical, I can do lucha, I can do hardcore, I can do all that. So we can work on that. And then a lot of character work. We do a lot of character work, a lot of promos, taunts, selling. I have a big emphasis on selling. I think that's another dying art that people are just trying to get to cool stuff. I'd like to marry the cool moves with the old school psychology. That's how I put my matches together. And I think that, that's working for me, and it's working for my students. I think it's cool. It's a unique variation on pro wrestling. I think because of that, we stand out. Yeah, that's about it. Like we've got some really cool people there. And just to close that little anecdote is that really that it's about not getting hurt. I've been injured quite a bit, and I want people to do things that are safe, and it's very easy to do things that are safe and entertaining at the same time, as long as you know what you're doing. So that's what I'm trying to tell people when I train people. And of course I do my seminars on nonverbal communication and story structure because I am a writer by trade. So I like to block out the wrestling match into a 3-act structure, and I'll do that in the States and in Europe and stuff like that. It's been met with fair regard, and as somebody who's written for WWE's comic book division as well, I think I have a pretty solid grasp on the story narrative of professional wrestling, and I think I can impart that really well. So there's some pretty impressive kids coming out of the dojo that you're going to want to keep your eye on for sure.
Last one before we wrap up, Shayne. You're involved in the filming of Dark Side of the Ring. What can you tell us about that experience?
It was awesome. I did 2 dates down there, and then I played Kevin Sullivan on the episode that just passed by. I played young Kevin Sullivan. He beats up a bodybuilder. Very fun experience in Toronto. And then I also did kind of like stunt coordination, but not really. I helped block out the fight scenes in the Matt Bourne episode that's coming out. Ben Ortmans, who's the actual wrestling coordinator from Crossbody Pro Wrestling, shout out to Ben Ortmans. He brought me in a day early so that him and Tyler Thomas, who is a very talented wrestler who doesn't have Twitter, so nobody really knows him, but we ran through their fight scenes so that they could film it, so that the film crew could then figure out how to best shoot the scenes, kind of thing. And then I did another episode. I can't reveal who I was on that episode yet because it has not aired, but you better believe that I will whore myself out on social media as soon as it does. But it was a very cool, very, very cool experience. The whole crew was very, very nice there. I like I like the show quite a bit. I do struggle with it because I have a lot of dead friends in wrestling, so like kind of seeing that kind of thing is hard for me. But especially being able to play Kevin Sullivan, like in the episode that centered around mental health, was a very rewarding experience for me. And I would love to do it again sometime. So hey, Dark Side of the Ring, cast your boy again, please do.
And finally, because you did touch on the mental health stuff, you've been very, very open about your mental health and about the mental health of wrestlers and others. Talk to us about the importance of it, especially in this business where you're on the road a lot and there's a lot going on. There's a lot of internal politics, external politics. Let's talk about mental health and wrestling real quick.
If you don't have this together, you're not going to make it in pro wrestling. And a lot of pro wrestlers take care of their body all the time, and they train their muscles and they stick to their diet, but they neglect the brain. And myself, coming from a background, I'm a 4th generation mental illness. My parents are mentally ill, grandparents and parents before them. I have a condition called dysthymia. Essentially what that means is my brain doesn't produce serotonin or dopamine on its own. So I have to supplement, I take medication, and I have to, do therapy, and I need to do breathing techniques and meditation and these kind of things. I think that one of the problems with mental health was the stigma that, like, if you had something wrong in your head, there was something wrong with you and you were weak. And I think that's backwards. I think it's stronger. I think it's tougher, so to speak, to acknowledge the mental illness and deal with it head on and not be ashamed of it for who you are. Like, I'm not ashamed of my mental illness. I struggle with it quite a bit, but I'm not somebody who's worried about telling people that. And I don't think anybody else should be either. It's who you are, and that's just how it is. I've done a lot for, I'm very open about it because I've struggled quite a bit with it. And I was on, like one time I was in the hospital for a suicide attempt, and I got out of it. And I said to myself, I was like, you know what, if I ever see anybody in the hole, I'm going to reach out and help them out. I've stuck to that quite a bit. I think that a lot of people get into pro wrestling because their mental health is not the best. And this industry will chew you up and spit you out. Like this business, we say that. But it's very, very difficult to be constantly criticized, and people on Twitter are just looking to dunk on you. And you need to put up defenses and shields against that. And likewise, the exhaustion that comes with being on the road all the time, and like beating up your body. When you're getting beat up, your brain takes a toll too. I think it's very important that we're conscious of that. And in the same way that people might do yoga, or that people might do stretching to take care of their muscles, they also need to do that with their brain. And that includes therapy. That includes meditation. That includes, and like, I'm not one of those guys who's like, have you tried not being depressed anymore? Like, is that, there are techniques that we can take to maintain. You're never going to fully get rid of your mental illness, but what you can do is you can live with it, learn to live with it, and learn to live with it in a healthy and productive way. So one thing, again, at my dojo that I impart on people is that, like, if you need a mental health day, take it. Because some people will not, like, they'll push through mental illness and they'll make it worse for themselves. And I ask, are you doing your best when you're mentally ill? Like when you're in a fit of depression, are you doing your best work? You're probably not. You're probably doing like 25%. Well, if you take that day off, you're coming back at 100%. So it's actually more productive work-wise to take the time necessary to heal. To take the time necessary to get your mind straight. Then you'll come back and do your best job. Also, if any wrestlers or anybody in general is listening to this and wants to just talk to somebody who understands it from the wrestling point of view, please reach out. I'm sure I will plug my socials later. You can check that out. I'll make you watch the rest of the episode to see that. But regardless, I think that wrestling is better when we're all in this together. And I think if we help each other and we treat each other the way we want to be treated, even in an industry where it's so cutthroat and we're all competing with each other at all times, I still think we can do it the right way. We can high road this and we can do better for everybody. And then maybe we'll have less early deaths, which would be very nice. It would be nice if my generation did not die in their 40s. So fingers crossed. Fewer people, at least, would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But, we have a lot of people who struggle with this on a daily basis. And you're not alone. And there are resources available to you. And sometimes it might feel like you're going to stop yourself from going to therapy or something like that. Like, I'm sure people who have mental illness are very much aware that, like, getting to that first therapy session, real difficult. That's because your brain is trying to stop you from doing so. Because you're more comfortable being in pain than you are with the uncertainty of healing. We're used to being in pain. So that pain is comfortable now. So our brain will subconsciously keep us in that zone. Break out of it. Be stronger than that. You want to really be strong? Take your mental health into your hand. Get over it.
I think one of the most important things that you mentioned there was that we're not alone, and that there are many people, unfortunately, or fortunately, in the case of being able to relate, there are people struggling, and you're not alone, and there are people who will be there to help, to at least support, do what they can. So that's a pretty important takeaway, in my opinion. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you, superstar Shayne Hawke, Andrew, whatever he's going to call himself to you today. Go ahead, plug your stuff, and we'll get to, again, Saturday, July 15th, IWS Scarred for Life at l'Olympia in Montreal. Get your tickets, tell them where they can find them, and where they can find you, most importantly.
So, first, let's go with the IWS stuff. We're at IWS Hardcore on every single platform, Linktree/IWS Hardcore. Tickets, merch, everything you need about us, we're right there. Well, for the IWS, we've got the Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. That's about it. For myself, personally, at Superstar Hawke with an E at the end. Please do not forget that. At Superstar Hawke on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as Shayne Hawke. I'm on Twitter as Superstar Hawke. I'm on TikTok now. I'm almost at 1,000 followers. So you can watch me be cringe, as my students tell me, because I'm an old man trying to be cool. Find us online. I got a pro wrestling tee store, but whatever, it's fine. I got this sweet new t-shirt that you can get from me directly. Really nice fabric. It's my big dumb face. Wear it on, and then you won't be as ugly by comparison. And other than that, like, please check us out on YouTube. Check out IWS on YouTube. We've got so much content, guys. And then if you got like IWTV or something like that, go watch our back catalog. Definitely do that. But make sure you check us out now. Listen, it's the best time to jump in. We're going to be on Fight Plus, pay-per-view, streaming. We're going to have our back catalog on there that you can watch dig into some Canadian wrestling, man. I try, like, we're a flavor that you're missing in your life. I know I am. And if you're watching this right now and you're a promoter, get at your boy. Get at Shayne Hawke. I'm available for bookings, seminars. Some people say signings, but I don't think that anybody's paying to like get my signature. But I mean, if you want to, I'll just sign something for you. But regardless, I think I'm an addition to any locker room that I can be in. And I'm a helpful guy. I'm a nice boy. And I work really hard. So, hey, good Jewish boys deserve bookings.
That's right. You've been a very good Jewish boy and also a very helpful one. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Here's
nothing better I could do on a Monday morning than have you on the show. Thank you again.
Thanks, bud. Take care.